Welcome back to The Bottom Line, sort of special edition, I feel like, since we're in between phases 1 and 2 of the CrossFit Games. I'm joined by Justin LoFranco. How's it going, Justin?
It's not bad. I'm recovering a little bit from last weekend. Slowly easing back into it before we ramp back up into the insanity again.
It feels like election coverage. We're just kind of like all
It
day, every
does.
day CrossFit stuff.
I know a thing or two about that, and yeah, there are some similarities between the two. We're both, in a vacuum of no information, waiting for the updates, and waiting for that precinct to report a final vote tally and stuff. That was kind of similar last weekend in a little bit. So,
Yeah,
but it was
totally,
fun.
totally.
We're recovering. We're ready to hit it for stage 2.
Yeah, same. And I feel like we're at a point right now where we haven't learned a ton of information yet about exactly how phase 2 will go down, but we are in a good spot now understanding how phase 1 shook out. So what I kind of want to ask you today is, looking back on the events of last weekend, I mean, the top 5 to me had some staples and some real interesting surprises. And so now that we've seen this complete test of fitness, in your opinion, did we test to find the 5 fittest people to move ahead onto phase 2?
I probably would. I haven't sat down and really like digested that specific question. I suspect yes. It typically ends up falling out that way. However, I think that the one thing that has been pointed out a number of different times, and even Dave has admitted it, is kind of the how quick the tests were. There was, um, you know, only one workout that was really in that 15 plus time domain. Diane, what was that, 2 to 3, maybe in the slower female times because of the strict deficit handstand push-ups in the 5s. Fran, 3 to 5. Row, high 2s to 5, not even 5, sorry.
Right.
Annie, low double digits at best. And then the better times being, in the 8s and stuff. And then so it was a bit short when you think about it. And it was pretty much sprint style workouts that were done particularly fast. So it would have been nice to see something that's up there maybe in that 13 to 15 time frame range among 7 tests. When you think about it, 7, you only have 1 that even pushes north of 15 and even hovering around the 15 mark. That seemed like a little bit of a shorter test than in typical years.
Yeah, I hear that argument. I also wonder, though, to myself, like, typically when you see a longer workout, like a 20-minute workout or a 22-minute workout, it's got a lot of long single modality things like a run. And I
Sure.
remember last year, people being particularly upset that a run was what kept a lot of people out
No,
of the top
sprint
5.
actually, I
It's
think is
like
what it was. A specialized sprint event as in a single
single
modality event.
modality, yeah.
The argument there is that if you had swapped the clean and the sprint, you'd have a different top 10.
Right.
And
You
if
could say
that's the
that.
case, then
Yeah.
well, if that's the case, if you're going to cut on a sprint, if you'd swap the clean and the sprint, not to bring back, old wounds here, but if you'd done that, you would have had a different top 10, absolutely, than you would have if you had cut on the sprint. So that's kind of where people's arguments come up there is that if you're going to choose a single modality to like sort of cut it, but this is not the case here. I mean, a row was in a strength, we're done here. Among all the tests. So all athletes here were judged on all tests. And so 5 athletes certainly passed that test in comparison to their peers. So I would say it's probably we've got the 5 fittest individuals. So the ones that were able to rise to the test. Some other absolutely fit people out there, they just maybe weren't practicing some of these events, or maybe they just had a bad weekend.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, you want to talk about people who didn't have a bad weekend. How in the world does Matt Fraser continuously pull away by like hundreds of points? How? How?
Well, we've asked him several times, like, what are you
What?
doing in that
Me
barn of
too.
yours? And he's like, pump the brakes there, buddy. We'll get to that when it's all said and done, and when I'm done having my way with people. I don't know what he's doing, and Tia's clearly following suit. And they're
Yes.
both just they're doing exactly what they need to be doing, apparently. And one honest question is can Dave find a test that they can't surpass?
Hmm.
I mean,
And
because as of
if
right
they
now,
can't surpass it, then probably no one else can either.
well, I would imagine so, unless if somebody just comes out and that's their wheelhouse event and it's got everything in there that's perfect. But for so far, they've far exceeded, smashed, and risen to every single challenge that he's thrown at him. So looking at the games programming for the ranch, it's be interesting if there's anything out there that they don't really completely excel at. And here's kind of a startling statistic that when we looked at it here. I'm going to pull this thing up, but this really blew my mind. Tommy pulled this out and Saturday afternoon in our sort of wrap up coverage of the games. And it was like, among the top 5, when you reshuffle the leaderboard so that you're only competing again with the top 5 and using the new scoring that we're going to have in Aromas. So this is based off the new scoring template. Matt Fraser scores 625 points, and the next highest individual is Justin Maderos with 390.
Ooh, interesting.
So
first of all, it shakes up the order. And second of all, you want to talk about a gap. Holy moly.
625, 390 is second place. So that's, 235 point differential among 7 events. And there's your stat of the day right there. It's how does anybody else really compete with somebody who's so dominant? And, okay, yeah, they weren't all in the same lane, and maybe there'll be a little bit of different shuffle or a push harder here, or there's an opportunity to break outside of the box into the traditional box style workouts, into the traditional games workouts, whatever argument you want to put out there. The stat that I'm paying attention to is they all did the same test. They all did it with their own barbells and their own cozy little gyms, and Matt Fraser won by 235 points. I don't know what to tell you guys. They're all fit. He's just doing things you're not. And
I don't get it.
So that's going to go up on our Instagram on social here pretty soon, because we reworked the leaderboard and just looked at it and just go like, there you go, folks. He won 1, 2, 3, 4 events and took second in 3 events. And then the margin was negligible. It was like 2 seconds, and then 8 pounds.
Yeah, and like that, nothing.
And that's the difference between him getting all wins and second place. It's like 8 pounds and like a couple of seconds combined between both workouts.
Is there a similar dominance with Tia on the women's side?
Yeah, the dominance is pretty similar. It's not quite as bad. Let me see here. The dominance is still pretty stark, but it's only 100 points.
Only?
Yeah, it's only 100 points. She still sweeps the first 3, obviously, since she got those. And then she takes second, another win, and a third place finish. So she takes a third, a second, a fifth in one event in the handstand hold. She wasn't great at that, and then she wins the final event for 545 with Brooke Wells at 445. So nothing changed with the top 2. Adams, David's daughter, Pierce, they'd all stay in the. No, David's daughter would switch with Adams. Her wins are what gave her that additional point spread, because the point spread is going to adjust slightly to this 5-person point spread that they're talking about here. So. Just saying, different test, but we're applying the same. We're applying the same leaderboard, a scoring sheet that we're going to see in Aromas here, and just applying here. It's purely academic, but
it's still.
But I've got a Benjamin riding on Matthew Fraser taking it. And Tia Toomey too.
Yeah, I totally agree. On the slightly more surprising front. For me, it was now Rookie of the Year Justin Maderos getting up into the top 5 on the men's side. I mean, what do you think about that for a hell of a first performance on that type of a competition floor?
Yeah, here's a guy that qualified for his first games, and he qualified for his first games by beating out a lot of senior veterans at the season opener Filthy 150 in Dublin, Ireland, and we were on the ground covering that. And here's a guy that's been competing at the regional environment since he was a teenager, and You know, he's been building up his strengths, and boom, it's like, all right, okay, guys, I'm ready to play. And he came ready to play, and he went up against Krenikov, he went up against Tim Paulson, Sean Sweeney, Adrian Munweiler,
Like
Lucas,
seasoned games
Lucas
veterans.
Esslinger, Dan Bailey, and he won outright. It wasn't like he was third on the podium and two people that had qualified were in front of him. The guy actually completely won the event, and he did it in fashion, and he did it in a really big, complete test. There was strength, there was endurance, gymnastic elements. There was all the, like, you know, eight events, 3 days. It was a great competition, and he won it. And then it was like, and then he went back home, and he was just like, I'm just going to hole up here. I'm not doing anything else for the rest of the year. I'm going to work on everything I need to work on to be competitive at the CrossFit Games. And that's exactly what he did. So
Yeah.
21 years old, it makes him the youngest male in the field. And he's the only rookie. So that's why he's rookie of the year.
Yeah. Incredible showing. And I just feel like a lot of times, well, and this is weird. What's weird about 2020, right? As I feel like a lot of times, if it's your rookie year at games, like the nerves, they can mess with you. They just can. And this is an interesting way for a rookie to get onto the floor for the very first time, because he was in his home gym with his home environment, all his friends and family there cheering him on.
Support system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm wondering how that will shake out in phase 2. It's like, has he built up enough momentum for the nerves to no longer play a part? Because like he's there, he's earned his place, whatever. Or when he steps out onto that floor for the very first time and he is next to Matt Fraser in a lane directly next to him, or however they're going to lay it out, is it going to kick in the way we've seen it kick in for rookies in the past?
I got a high degree of confidence in Maderos.
Yeah.
He just looks like this kid who's like, he gets punched and just keeps coming back again. Like, he's not this guy who's going to back down. He's got a really good engine. It's just, I think it's the strength element that's held him back from being more competitive in CrossFit. And so if he's bringing in that engine element and, you know, now we're getting into maybe perhaps a little bit more aerobic heavy events like swimming and running uphill. He's light, he's fast, and he's strong. And he's 21 years old. So I'm just like excited to watch him get unleashed and be able to try the real games apparatus experience and stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, what's kind of interesting is the average, there's a combined age of just 22 years old for 4 of the 10 athletes, which is kind of startling. This is one of the youngest CrossFit Games top 10s that we're going to be fielding here, or top 5s, 10 athletes here. Brooke Wells is the oldest of the sort of young athletes here, and she's 25 years old. Haley Adams 19, Sam Quant's 24, and Maderos is 21. This is actually a much younger field than we see in placing in the top 5. So that's kind of cool to be able to see that and kind of see the next generation sort of coming in. I don't really consider Brooke part of the next generation. She was young when she was a teen, I think 19 when she qualified, 20 when she competed. So she's already got many years under her belt, but, and, you know, Quant's going into this will be, I think, his 3rd games. You know, Haley are 2nd, and then Maderos are his 1st. So it's kind of cool to see younger athletes kind of rising up and getting an opportunity to play and, you know, see how they perform on the main stage.
It makes me feel so old.
You know, teenagers lived more than us for years.
Forever, I guess.
Nothing's changed. Don't look at the number. Just keep on going.
Yeah. You know, on the women's side, it's not actually the young buck Haley Adams that surprised me as much as it was Brooke Wells. And not even Brooke Wells getting into the top 5, but Brooke Wells in her placement, really, really high up on the podium.
Yeah, really strong.
Chasing for Tia. And the reason that surprised me is because she has so typically in the past been a dominant strength athlete. And in this phase 1 of games, I believe it was the front squat that was her worst finish. So to me, it's a pleasant surprise that she's been able to be like, okay, I got the strength. Now I'm going to train my gymnastics. I'm going to train my engine. I'm going to train whatever, not to the detriment of her strength. She's still strong enough.
Oh yeah.
You know, and to me, like seeing her climb up the leaderboard like that was my biggest surprise is the wrong word. It impressed me the most that she's been able to figure out her holes.
She finished out, you know, only 35 points back from Toomey, which is a really, really impressive finish for her. Very consistent across the board. Like you said, 2nd event was her worst finish. She got 10th. So all finishes within the top 10, most finishes in the top 5. There's only one other outlier, and that was the handstand hold. And so she had an average placement of 5.3. So you're looking at that and you're saying, wow, okay, that's a very efficient performance over time.
Mm-hmm.
And she excelled in areas we thought, okay, look, like a workout like Annie. The barbell's not going to be an issue for her. She's very, very strong. Okay, maybe she messed up or didn't have a good groove here on the handstand hold. And that was like that one event where you're like, okay, well, yeah, there was a couple really stellar performers that we expected there. Katrin, gymnast, Carrie, gymnast, but then there's a lot of tight kind of collection inside of there where, it could have gone either way, and she would have been even closer to Toomey's to kind of closing the gap between her and Toomey. 35 points. I mean, she's got to be really, really happy with that. By way of comparison, she's about 83 points ahead of Haley Adams. So that's a pretty decent gap. Those two athletes were by and large kind of really separating themselves from the pack. You see one more event, or if Brooke had, got a 6th place or a 5th place finish and held on a little bit longer in the handstand, then, we would be seeing it kind of like in a 15-point range between her and Tia. And now all of a sudden we're like, whoa, okay, yeah, Tia was dominant, but like, let's just look at this, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And, to be fair, Brooke didn't win in a single event.
Right.
Her best finish was 3rd.
Right. Very consistent.
Extremely consistent. And so you're looking at that and saying, yeah, that's a recipe for success. It's a mature athlete who understands, hey, look, like this is an aggregate here. Like if I just continue to accumulate these 3, 4, 5, 6 place finishes, I'm going to be just fine. And she was more than just fine at the end.
Yeah. So
Very
interesting to see how all those scores shook out. Well, Justin, we are stoked to figure out exactly what is going to be going down in phase 2 of the games.
Yep.
But I totally agree with you. I do think that, in one way, shape, or form, the 5 fittest are absolutely moving on. It was a solid test of fitness to figure out who would be in the finals. There are obviously, no matter which way you cut it, you're going to be missing out on really, really fit people, some of which I really wanted to see in the top 5,
Yeah.
but we would be having this conversation about folks that dropped out no matter who was going.
No matter where the cut line was. Yeah. That's true.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. We will see you guys all next time on The Bottom Line.